Hi everyone, and welcome to our final video for Psychology 2 this year. And today we're going to be talking about the topic of emotion, right? So we just finished motivation, and motivation and emotion are linked as a unit. So this PowerPoint is going to focus on what is emotion, what are the theories of emotion, and then we're going to talk about anger and happiness. So what are the ingredients of emotion, right? Most of us just think of emotion as a feeling, but that's actually not really the way psychology thinks about it at all. So psychologists believe that emotions have three parts, right? They have the actual display of the emotion, so like the smile, right? Or the frown, okay? And then they have the physiological, like arousal, right? And then the cognitive appraisal. Cognitive appraisal is like, I'm sad because, I'm happy because. It's the thought, okay? And a lot of times we don't always think about the way we think impacts our emotions, but it totally does. And the last part is the physiology of it. That's the body part of it. So what's actually happening in your body when you're feeling that emotion? So remember, you have your expression, right? You have your thought, I'm sad because, and then you have the body. Maybe you're crying, maybe you have that knot in your stomach when you're sad. You know, there's a physiological response that goes along with the emotion, okay? Now, while most psychologists agree that these parts are there, not all of them really agree with the order that they go in. So there's a couple different theories that go through this. Okay, James Lange is one of the oldest theories of emotion, and this actually doesn't consider the thinking part at all. So it just considers the emotion, right? And then the bodily changes. And actually, they believe that your body tells you what the emotion is. So it's not that like you're sad and then you start to cry. It's that you're crying and then your brain goes, oh, I must be sad. So the emotion is actually caused by what happens in your body. For example, when you're driving, right, and you're in, the car, and all of a sudden your heart starts racing and you freak out because there's a car coming towards you, then your body's like, oh my God, I'm scared, look what's going on. Or your brain is like, oh my God, I'm scared, look what's going on in my body. So the emotion is a result of the body change that's happening, okay? So it's the body and then the emotion. Cannon-Barth theory actually believes still that you have the heart pounding and the emotion, but they actually believe it happens at the exact same time. So it's not really that your body tells your brain how you feel, it's that your body and brain react simultaneously. The way that I remember this is that C and B are next to each other in the alphabet, right? So I think of them as like you would say A, B, C. So basically you're saying them at the same time. And so Cannon-Barth theory says that the emotion happens at the same time. Okay, so it's just like James Lange in that it has the two parts, but in this instance, the two parts are happening together at the exact same time. Theory of emotion is Schachter's two-factor theory. And what's interesting about this is that there's a special way you have to say it. So, in order for you to remember this, we're going to say Schachter two-factor, Schachter, okay? And you have to do those hands, and you have to say two-factor, Schachter, because the two factors is what's going to help you remember this, because this actually adds. It has the body like the other ones and the emotion, but they add the cognitive label. So in this instance, the emotion is the result of the way your body feels like the other two, but they add the two-factor, which is the cognitive judgment. So if you think about it really, what's the difference between feeling really excited and really nervous? It's the way that you think about it, right? If there's a boy talking to you or a girl talking to you that you like, right? You feel excited and you label this person like, oh, I'm so excited they're talking to me. Oh my God, right? You get like little butterflies and your heart starts racing and whatever. But if you're being approached by someone who you think is really creepy, you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's the same feeling, but you're just thinking about the situation differently, right? So it's the same body, but a different thought process, right? You label the body emotion as something, and then that determines what the emotion is, okay? Two-factor, Schachter. Okay, so if you look at it this way, here's the three theories, right? So you have the James Lange theory over here, right, which is heart-pounding emotion. Then you have Cannon-Barth, same time. And then you have Schachter, two-factor, Schachter, right? Heart pounding, I'm afraid I could die in this car accident. And then you have fear. Okay, so now that we know the theories of emotions, let's talk about some specific emotions. Like I said in class, we have identified some emotions that are basic to who we are as human beings. They're the same across all categories, across all countries, all cultures, anything, right? So here's the faces that we see, right, even in babies, okay? So the goal here is to try to figure out which of these faces goes with which emotion over here on the side, right? Okay, so see if you can figure it out, and I'll give you the answers in class. What causes anger, right? We're going to start with anger. Anger is actually like pretty common. Most of us become angry mildly at least once or twice a week. And what we find actually is that it's actions that are like totally like avoidable, that you can't just seem to avoid, that make you the most angry, or something that's completely unjustified, right? Or you just get really blameless, you just get really irritated about something. So the things that seem to make us the most angry are things that we think are totally unjustified, or things that you could have avoided. Like, I know for me, like parking tickets make me infuriated, right? Because I feel like it's such a waste of money and I could have avoided it, but I just didn't pay attention or something, right? And then the question is then, after you're angry, what do you do with it? And the psychologists have kind of they disagree on the importance of catharsis. So catharsis is a really fancy word for venting, right? So you're like, I'm so mad, right? That is a catharsis. When you freak out, when you vent, some of you vent to a friend, some of you, go work out, and that kind of helps release. But a lot of times we focus on catharsis as like the expressing of hostility, maybe like in a verbal form, right? And there's a little bit of controversy over whether or not this actually makes you feel better. And the reality is sometimes, if you ever had this happen, you start venting, and then at the end, you're even angrier than when you started, and you don't even know why, right? But you started talking about it, and you're thinking about it again, and then all of a sudden you're really angry, and you were more angry than when you even started, right? So we don't always know that catharsis actually makes us feel better, even though we tend to do it. The key here is that if you actually express your anger to the person you're angry at, it can be helpful. If you express it to somebody else, not so much. Sometimes it can just make you feel more angry or more upset. What about happiness? Okay, so happiness, we watched a little bit about this on the first day of the unit, and they talked about some of the things that happiness is not related to. So it's not really related to being a parent, although we think it's related to being physically attractive. It usually isn't. Education level, gender, age, money. Now the money thing is like, it's not related to money to a certain point. Obviously, if you're in poverty, then yes, that would bring you happiness. But once you get to a certain income level, each dollar doesn't really make that much more in terms of making you happy, okay? It is related to your relationships. They find religious faith, sleep, exercise, genetics, like we talked about, 40% of it, self-esteem, optimistic outlook, right? That's what you're choosing to believe, right? That 40% of the idea that you're like, okay, I'm going to choose to have a positive outlook, right? So it's not just that happiness is all genetics or all the way that you think about life, but it's a combination, okay? And this is just a graph of, what they found among college students who report high life satisfaction and give priority to love over money. So the more you value money, right, the less satisfied you are. The more you value love, the more satisfied you are. Okay. While there are some things that can make us happy and not, right, we find that there's another piece of the puzzle. So our happiness is sometimes determined by those around us. This is called the relative deprivation principle. So, for example, if I got a new iPhone, but then you got a new iPad, my iPhone might not seem so cool anymore, right? So the question I want you to think about is, would you rather make $75,000 and your friends make $100,000, or would you rather make $50,000 and your friends make $30,000? Make a choice. So I'm guessing a lot of you said, I would much rather make $75,000. But what they find is that that's not actually true when it's happening. Most of us would rather make more than those around us. It's like the keeping up with the Joneses, or in our times, the Kardashians, the phenomenon, right? That you kind of want what everyone else has. And if you feel like you have more than everyone else around you, you tend to feel happy. Where if you just got like a new Toyota and then your neighbor gets a new Mercedes, it just doesn't feel the same, right? You're jealous again, even though you just got something new too. And the other part of happiness is that we become used to whatever happens to us in our life. So we adapt, right? I win the lotto. I'm like happy, really, really happy for like 6 months. And then I'm like kind of used to being a lotto winner and having all this money. And then I kind of go back to the way I was before. So some big change can change our happiness for a period of time dramatically. But after that, it kind of evens out. Okay, so last but not least, what are the consequences of being happy? Well, when you're happy, I mean, I guess it's not hard to say that your life obviously is better because you're happier, so you're more optimistic and you have all these other improved things. You know, there's all these physical things that they're finding now about happiness and how it can help you, you know, how you can actually change your brain by like meditating or thinking about happiness. But they also find that there's a phenomenon that we talk about in psychology called the feel good, do good phenomenon, right? And this is that when you're happy, you're more likely to help others, right? So when something good happens to you, you're more likely to do something nice to someone else, and then so on and so forth. And this is like the pay it forward phenomenon too, right? We always think of that like, you know, random acts of kindness. Like I said, you have a stronger immune system. They're finding there's actually physical things that happen to your body when you tend to think about things in a more positive life. Of course, greater life satisfaction, that makes sense. If you think about things in a positive way, you're going to find them more meaningful. And sometimes you experience this thing called flow, where if you've ever been doing something you really love to do and you completely lose track of time, that's what flow is, right? It's this idea that like you are in your own zone, okay? And the reason, you know, Miss Schaefer, I get this when I'm like lesson planning for psychology, which is like, I know, really nerdy, right? But all of a sudden I'll start looking up ideas online and then it's like 3 hours later and I have no idea how that happened. But you like get into a place where you're like totally like just, you can't even think about anything else going on around you and you're just in that state and you're totally focused. That's all for now. And remember, psychology is flippin' awesome.